Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different. I will be going over the Hinterkaifeck murders, also known as the Gruber murders, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I apologize. Before I get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. A trigger warning is in place because of the nature of the video for those that are affected by this topic. Now, for those of you that are unaware, the Hinterkaifeck murders are the unsolved murders of a family of 5 plus their maid, and it occurred on a farm close to Kaifeck, Germany in 1922. The head of the family was a man named Andreas Gruber who owned the farm, which people referred to as the Hinterkaifeck farm, and that's how the case got its name. The people that lived with him are his wife named Kazilia, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either, their adult daughter Victoria, granddaughter Kazilia, named after the grandmother, and baby grandson Yosef. There was also their newer family maid named Maria. I say newer maid because about 6 months before, the old maid had quit because she kept hearing a voice in the attic, and from that she thought that the house was haunted. Personally, I don't know if I would think the house was haunted. I would probably, want to go check it out or something, but that's probably just me. Now, about a week or so before they were killed, Andreas began to notice some strange things around the farm, which he apparently complained to the neighbors about. What he had begun to notice were a newspaper that he had never bought appearing, missing keys to a tool shed where the murder weapon was kept, footsteps in the attic, and footprints that led up to the house but didn't lead away from the house. He never did end up reporting any of this to the police, however. The day of the murders was March 31st, 1922. 4 of the 6 that were killed were lured into the barn by the killer. The people that were lured into the barn were Andreas, the wife Kazilia, daughter Victoria, and granddaughter Kazilia. Once they were inside, they were killed with a pickaxe. Some sources say that the women also had some strangulation marks, but I couldn't find that in every single place, so I don't know if that's 100% true, so don't quote me on that. Once the killer was done with them, he went into the house and killed baby Yosef and Maria in their respective bedrooms. For several days after the murders occurred, whoever it was that had killed the family fed and cared for the animals around the farm. The family was only found on April 4th, 4 days after they were killed. They were found by the neighbor Schlittenbauer, again I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and some townspeople. According to witness reports, 2 of the townspeople at least were Pole and Sigel, maybe others. I don't know if I'm pronouncing either of those names right either, so I apologize. The only 2 reasons that they went to check on the Grubers is because of mail piling up at the post office and granddaughter Kazilia not showing up for school for 2 days in a row, which is very unlike her. Once they found the bodies, they called the cops and the investigation began. The investigators found that, shockingly, the granddaughter Kazilia had actually survived for several hours after the attack and actually had died from shock caused by the trauma. They also had found that she was missing entire chunks of hair from her scalp, which they assumed that she had torn out from herself. Personally, I think that she probably tore out the hair to try to keep herself conscious in hopes that someone had heard and would come help. From the opening of the investigation in 1922 to 1986, authorities pulled in over 100 suspects for questioning, but nothing came of it. Once the coroner had completed his autopsy, the police actually had the heads of the bodies removed, and they sent them to Munich to clairvoyants to see if there was any sort of metaphysical evidence tied to the case at all. This, however, did lead to the heads actually getting lost because of turmoil caused by World War II. Because of the heads being lost, the bodies had to be buried headless, and after all the evidence was taken from the farm, it was destroyed. And before I get into any theories about who actually caused it, I'm going to tell you how the case is actually end up being closed. Apparently in 2007, German police took the case on as a training exercise, which is often done with unsolved cases or cold cases. They took the case and they used modern techniques and narrowed it down to 1 suspect. But, however, since so much time had passed since the case ended, they didn't want to say the name because they wanted to respect the current living family. I understand this completely, and I would probably end up doing the same if it had been me, because then the family would have been bombarded with accusations and everything, even though the person who had done it is already dead. Now I'm going to go over one theory, and then another thing is there's some similarities between this case and another case that I might be going over in the future if you guys want me to. The theory is that some people think the neighbor, Schlittenbauer, was actually the person who did it, because he had the motive and the means to do so. His motive was that he was paying for child support for a child that might not have even been his, which was baby Joseph. Another motive was that if Joseph was indeed his son, he stood as the only living relative, therefore the inheritor of the farm, if something happened to the family. The family had to have trusted him, at least to a degree. After all, he was the possible father of Joseph. He paid his child support, and to top it all off, he was their neighbor. According to witness reports, his actions at the scene were odd as well. However, I don't know if I trust that because there isn't really any emotion written in any of the witness reports or any of the statements that were taken at the scene. But I will go ahead and go over what was told. The two townspeople that I named earlier, Pohl and Sigel, whenever they went with him to the scene, they say that they were told by him once he went into the barn that they have either hung themselves or something else has happened, which was later changed to they have been beaten to death or they have hung themselves. Sigel says he followed Schlittenbauer through the door to the barn and he felt a foot in the hay. At first he says that he thought it was a calf's foot, but later Pohl says that it was actually Gruber's foot. Once they found the bodies, Schlittenbauer inquired about his baby Joseph. This wasn't reported to the police, however, and I don't know why it wouldn't be. Sigel had accused Schlittenbauer of tampering with evidence because he had touched the bodies to see if any of them were still alive after the fact, and once he had found none of them living, he went into the house to look for Joseph, finding him dead in his room. Now for the similarities between this case and another case. It's actually between the similarities between this case and a case in America called the Otero murders. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either. I'm really bad at pronouncing things. In both cases, the females had strangulation marks. For the Grubers, it would have been on top of the pickaxe wounds as well, if that is actually in fact true. They both had apparent stalker behavior, for example, the footprints, newspaper, and the fact that the killer knew what time to strike. On top of that, something else I found while I was researching this, apparently Andreas had also seen a man in the woods a few times before he actually found the footprints leading up to the house. And on top of all of this, in both cases, the little girl was left to die a slow and painful death. Personally, I am led to believe the neighbor theory. It makes sense for me than a random person doing it. It felt too personal, like the killer had something to gain. Even though the farm was actually destroyed after all the evidence was taken from it, the person might have thought, or I guess the neighbor might have thought that he was going to gain the farm because before he did it, he didn't know that the farm was going to get destroyed. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, so let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like this type of content? If so, do you want to see more like it? Because I do have one that I just need to record. I already have it all written out. Just let me know. Once more, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video.